Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We have the pleasure of hosting the fourth session of the Northeast Region's Ovarian Cancer Wellness Symposium for the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition. And tonight's topic, which is of great interest to many of the members of our organization, is coping with cancer during the holidays. And we have a wonderful guest speaker joining us tonight. So please welcome Marissa Force, who is the Director of Specialized Program for Cancer Cares. And she is responsible for delivering their free services to people whose lives are affected by cancer. She oversees the organization's resource navigation program and contributes to various organizational programs. She graduated from NYU and has since received her postgraduate training on topics including clinical supervision, executive leadership in non-for-profit sector, and clinical trauma competency. She is dedicated to oncology social work and is committed to improving outcomes for all people impacted by a cancer diagnosis. And we are honored to have her here this evening to share her expertise with all of us. And I want to now turn over the introductions to Marissa.
All right, well, thank you so much, Stephanie. And good evening to you all as well. And I just want to thank you all for being here and sharing your evening with us to hear and learn about this very important and timely topic, coping during the holidays. So Stephanie had introduced me, and I don't know if I have anything else to add to that. I think you did a great job explaining my background. And you can go ahead and go to the first slide.
Okay.
If you have any other questions at the end about me or my work, I'd be happy to answer that. But I'd also love to hear a little bit about you. We're a small group, so if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about yourself, I would love to hear just anything about where you're calling or zooming in from, which state anyway, maybe what you're hoping to learn today, what you're expecting from today's presentation, or maybe just a fact about yourself. So this can be entered into the chat, and it's a great opportunity to make sure that your chat function is working and really to just get adjusted to using it if you never have. So for anyone that does feel comfortable, I would love to just see, where are we calling in from? What are we expecting? Okay, New York City, St. James. Buffalo, wow, okay. Oh, Connecticut. Okay, we have not only New Yorkers, Dix Hills, Bayville. Oh, a lot of Long Islanders I see here. Massachusetts. Tips for coping. Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that's your expectation because that's what we will be talking about, dealing with the holidays. Syracuse, wow, okay. Wow, we have a little bit of everywhere, so that's really great to see. Rocky Point, Poughkeepsie, wow, okay. A good response to people that say stupid stuff. That's a great question. All right, so yeah, I think we'll definitely get to some of these things later on, and anything else that I don't get to, feel free to bring up later on when we do our questions. All right, so Stephanie, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So that brings me to just talking about what are the goals and the objectives for today. So in this presentation, I'm hoping that you will learn ways to cope with any changing feelings during the holiday season. Really, the goal of this presentation is to have you understand meaningful ways to continue some holiday traditions or explore ways to manage stress and anxiety. And we will include overviews of coping techniques like mindfulness, different ways to get emotional support and improve quality of life. And the objectives will be to learn how to celebrate holidays in meaningful ways, um, use coping skills and techniques to manage feelings of not only stress, but depression and anxiety. Hoping that you'll gain empowerment and encouragement to include this support in your life. And, not only just better, try and manage a cancer diagnosis during the holidays, but really I'm hoping you use these skills just throughout the year as well. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this presentation is specifically about coping with cancer during the holiday season, and that can be any holiday. But I'm also hoping that, like I said, most of you could use these tips, at any time. And another thing I wanted to stress is that even though we all may be thinking of different holidays or be celebrating different holidays, there may be things that we all have in common. So, regardless of what the holiday is, maybe it's Thanksgiving, which I know just passed. Maybe it's Hanukkah or Christmas or New Year's. Maybe you celebrate more than one of those. There are some things or traditions that unite us. So again, in the chat, I would love to get your thoughts about what we might have in common when you think of holidays or the holiday season. Eating. Mm-hmm. Yeah, eating's a big one. Lots of people haven't seen in a while. Planning and traveling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Food and alcohol that I can't eat or drink. Good point. Being alone. Absolutely. Yeah. Seeing family and friends, gathering and talking about events during the year, food, being festive, family, love, food, joy. I see food a lot. Yeah, these are great. And yeah, I think we will actually talk about, coping with these, talking about past holidays. Yeah, yeah, reflection, definitely. All right, so Stephanie, you can go ahead and reveal some of the things that I have thought we may all have in common. And that could be shared customs or traditions, could be cooking and eating together. I saw a lot of you say food, gathering with loved ones, traveling, absolutely, and high energy activities when, this is especially important to think about when you may not have the energy right now to do what's typically expected of you. Gift exchanges that can happen, can be very stressful. And a lot of other things can bring stress and anxiety, and there is a time for reflection. So, a lot of these things I think you did mention. So I'm glad to see we're on the same page here with what we have in common. So you can go ahead and go to, yes, thank you. So what are some common concerns now? So I just also wanted to mention that, the holiday seasons happen to bring up many of these concerns that I will review. But one other thing I thought was interesting is that the holidays happen to be during the coldest time of the year, in New York anyway, and Connecticut. It gets dark earlier. And I think that contributes to how we feel emotionally for many people. So just all of that in combination, I think that's important to remember. And I think it's especially important to find those coping skills that work for you, because of all of those different factors involved in how you're feeling. So what else do these holidays have in common? These common concerns, what expectations, what worries? And, I think one thing I think that a lot of people have in common is that perhaps they just feel different this year. That's what I hear a lot. This year may feel different, you may feel different, and I think different can actually mean a lot of things. It can mean you just don't feel like yourself. Maybe something feels off. Uh, Maybe you just don't feel like celebrating this year, and that's different for you. It could also mean that you see yourself as different from others or find it harder to connect. Um, you may want to or not want to participate in certain traditions you love. That could be due to not being able to travel. Traveling during the holidays is stressful and expensive enough. Now you're adding traveling during a time you may feel ill or fatigued, nauseous, may have diarrhea, all due to treatment side effects. And I'd like to also mention that for most people, COVID may be, the thing of the past, but for those diagnosed with cancer and in treatment, it's still a very real concern, especially if you're immunocompromised. And that could make, celebrating for the holidays or traveling, very difficult. And some people may not be able to relate, to still being concerned. So that can be really challenging to explain. Treatment may interfere with having certain traditional foods. We all, love certain foods, and they have that, they make the holiday in some sense that meaning and that tradition. And I heard a lot of you say that you can't enjoy those foods anymore. So what do you do? Um, you could be perhaps also have a sense of taste change. You could not be able to eat. You could be trying to eat healthier or different types of foods, and or just struggling with being able to eat at all. I think that can be very isolating too, because family members may not be able to understand that. And that could also increase some feelings of isolation. I'd also like to say that your priorities may be shifting a little bit. I don't know if that's anything that you've ever noticed, but you may be reevaluating your values, what's important to you. You may also face tough discussions with your family about how you're feeling and trying to express your concerns, or facing difficult questions from others. Some you can't or really they don't want to answer. And lastly, and I think this could actually be a presentation all on its own, many people find that they may be questioning their faith or part of their faith during the holiday or even year round. That's absolutely normal, but very hard to share with others sometimes. And, this questioning of your faith could also have you question your identity, your beliefs, and again, what's important to you. So I would say if you're feeling any, some, or really, all of these things, I'm really glad that you came today. And I want you to know that these are absolutely valid and normal, and there are ways to cope with those feelings and those challenges. And on the next slide, I'll review these tips for coping with cancer during the holidays. And I hope you can use them, whenever you feel stressed or anxious. And know that, for people that are diagnosed, whether they're in treatment or post-treatment, even caregivers, all feel these emotions and can benefit from some practical tips and support. Okay, so let's talk about these tips and suggestions. And I do hope that you're able to use these suggestions in your own unique way. So I wanted to first stress that these tips may be easier said than done. I know sometimes, it's difficult to start these suggestions. Um, it does take sometimes, work to change and to challenge yourself to figure out how to ask for help. That's not easy to do. But I do hope this is a way that empowers you to take those actions, or even start small, even just to try one of these things. Because I like to stress to people that you're worth it. You deserve to find, that any type of peace or calm or happiness that these tips can bring you. So the first thing I want to stress is to express your feelings. And do so in ways that help you receive support from the important people in your life. Give yourself permission to feel your feelings. It's okay to cry when expressing yourself. Um, Tears can really bring a sense of relief to finally be able to let that out. Um, Sharing can be very comforting too, I hope. Um, and it is common to experience a mixture of anticipation or apprehension when expressing yourself, but let those feelings breathe and talk to them with whoever you feel comfortable with, whether that is a friend, a family member, or a professional counselor. I would also stress to make plans on your own terms and just to find the right balance between celebrating with family and friends and spending time on your own. And give yourself permission to pace your activities and even decline invitations that you may not have the energy to do this year. You could also change or create new traditions, and that could mean having a potluck instead of cooking. It could mean doing something on a smaller scale, and it could mean trying something different, like a hobby together instead of a usual tradition. Um, if you're giving gifts, I would say maybe write meaningful letters instead, or do a secret gift exchange, instead of gifts for everyone. That could really reduce stress and expenses and really make the day your own and hopefully get some of that control back. You might find that these create some special moments, hopefully, and allow yourself really to just be absorbed by them. I would always stress be creative. And, it's okay to allow yourself to deviate from the norm and, create something that's still very meaningful for you. Whenever you can, practice healthy habits, and that means being kind to yourself and introducing some type of self-care. That includes sleeping, eating healthy, limiting alcohol, and the most radical of all, I think, includes saying no. That's not always easy to do. If you need that rest, if you can't do something, give yourself that rest. It's okay to take care of your own needs and take care of yourself first. I always like to say self-care is not selfish. I would also say to ask for help. Help can come in many forms. It can be practical help from others. It can be emotional support from a professional. There's nothing wrong with seeking help. I know that's hard to do, maybe even harder than saying no, but it's really going to be important to be able to express those feelings of stress and anxiety. Because feeling stressed and feeling any type of anxiety or depression, or no matter what feeling it is, it's absolutely common and normal. And counseling can provide a safe space to voice those concerns and to help you learn better ways to cope with those changes. An oncology social worker, for example, is a great way, to find guidance, resources, or programs that best fit your needs. If counseling is not the best fit for you, I would also say perhaps maybe a support group is a good option. That gives you the chance to meet and interact with other people who can understand your experience. And building a support network, can really lessen that feeling of isolation. And there's many ways to join support groups now. They can be online, they can be in person, they can be on Zoom. So whatever works for you. And lastly, I would say, save your time for reflections. This can be alone time or with others, but that can actually be a really great way to just, cope better, to have those memories. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So some tips, I think also it's important to stay connected. If you are feeling that the holidays are lonely, I would say try to stay connected in the best way that you can. You are not a burden. And I would say make that phone call. Talking on the phone is a great way to connect, or send that text, or send that email. You are not bothering anybody. You are not a burden. I just want to share that with you. And I know a lot of the times we don't reach out because we think we are a burden. You deserve to have that support. I think you could also, in an email format, it's a great way to express yourself in meaningful ways. Or you could do it the old-fashioned way and write a letter on pen and paper. I would also say if you have more energy, maybe FaceTime or Zoom. I know we must all have some form of Zoom fatigue by now. And thank you all for coming. If you are experiencing some Zoom fatigue, there are ways to set limits or expectations for Zoom. So you could agree to meet for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is that you think you have the energy for. Don't feel like you have to spend a long time on Zoom because somebody else wants to. Set those boundaries and limitations for yourself. You could also start recording special moments. Consider recording family, yourself, any special events, and share them. Or if you have past recordings, share them as well. Memories are a great way, I think, to stay connected. And, I think just remember to celebrate or stay connected in your own way that's unique to you and really the best for how you are currently feeling. If you set something up last week but don't feel like you can do it today, that's okay. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Mindfulness. So I think relaxation techniques and other mind-body practices can really help calm your mind and really sharpen that ability to focus. It reduces stress, reduces anxiety, maintains some type of inner peace. There's a lot of benefits to different types of mindfulness. Meditation is one that probably comes to mind the most when thinking of mindfulness. It could be, and there's a lot of forms of meditation. It could be repetitive prayers, that's more of a traditional form. Other forms include mantra meditation. And mantra meditation focuses the mind on a word or a sound that's also called a mantra. And many people use words like peace or love or even now to stay in the present. And the goal is really to relax your mind, which has a tendency to jump from one idea to the next or from one worry to the next. Unfortunately, our minds are very hard to control. And there's no need to force your mind back to your mantra when you notice that it has wandered, for example, because it is so normal. Instead, gently remember your mantra and accept that your mind will stray again. And closed eyes are not a requirement for meditation. Many people prefer to keep their eyes open or, have something relaxing to look at, which brings me to guided imagery. So this is a stress reduction technique that uses a combination of breathing and meditation. As you practice your breathing, you can imagine a peaceful scene or something that brings you joy, something in the past. And just listening sometimes to ambient sounds is enough to relax your mind and briefly transport you to a place where you feel safe, secure, calm. You can even look up some guided imagery online and choose, some sounds that work best for you. Some people enjoy the rain or ocean sounds or nature sounds, things like that. Journaling is another tool that can help you process your thoughts and feelings. And research actually shows that really journaling can serve as an outlet to feelings that are difficult to express otherwise that you wouldn't say to anybody else. And when you write your worries or fears, you can always go back to them and see, what was it that was causing me that anxiety, or even see any progress that you made. Somatic grounding, this refers to your ability to sense your own body and as a result, calm your own nervous system. And it could be things like running cold water over your hands or your face, or doing something called a body scan. It's almost like active meditation, where you just be in a comfortable position, you close your eyes and start focusing on, let's say, the lower part of your body, your toes, your feet, and really work yourself up to your scalp. And if you notice any tension, release it and then breathe and repeat as necessary. I find that many people find this to be very relaxing. Also can help you sleep. Um, the next is a somatic grounding technique. This is actually one of my favorites. It uses your senses and makes you more aware of and mindful of your surroundings. So for example, that would be first name 5 things you can see and then breathe. Name 4 things you can hear. Name 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can taste. And the good thing about this is you can do this anywhere. You can do it in nature. You can do it in the park. You can do it while walking. Uh, Too cold or you can't leave the house, you can look out the window during breakfast. You can do it in a doctor's office if you're feeling very anxious. So there's really a lot of great benefits to any of these mindful techniques. So some of them may be new to you. So I would suggest to give maybe one a try and see which one kind of speaks to you. I would also stress, even doing things you already know that you enjoy, that bring you some peace. Give yourself some time to, if you enjoy the quietness of reading or going for a walk or doing solo yoga or group yoga or being in nature, really anything that you find calming. And on the other hand, try something new, absolutely new, something you never thought you would ever try. Knitting, poetry, painting. I think the sky's the limit there, and be creative. All right, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So I briefly mentioned earlier that these techniques could also be used for caregivers. And I'm not sure if there are any caregivers on this call today, on the Zoom today, but I'll just take some dedicated time to remind those caregivers that if they are here, that, let me see, I have a question. Can I review somatic grounding again? Yes, I can definitely do that. So if you want to just go back to that slide, yeah. So somatic grounding is a way to use the ability to sense your own body in different ways. So you'll calm yourself and in your nervous system, I'm sorry. So one of the ones could be, I think I mentioned running cold water over your hands or your face, doing the body scan. The body scan is you put yourself in a comfortable position, whether it's seated like this or lying down. And you can start with either your lower body with your toes and your feet and work your way up. Or the other way around. You can start from the very top of your head to your toes. And how you do that is you focus on that area and you try and notice, am I feeling tension in that area? And if you are, breathe and release it. And it's a good way to kind of notice where your tensions are. And you just keep going to the next point. And you can repeat that, and that's very calming. The other one I mentioned was the one that uses all of your senses. So that is naming 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can taste, and just breathing through that. And that keeps you very mindful. And especially if you're having a lot of racing thoughts, this gives you something to focus on. It doesn't have to necessarily be in that order where it's see, hear, smell, touch, taste. You can do it whichever order works for you. So I hope that answers your question. If it does not, I can always just, when we have the questions, we can go back to that some more. Okay, Great. So just going back to the caregivers. So like I said, I don't know how many caregivers we have today in this call, but I just wanted to say that some common challenges that caregivers may face, could be very similar to some of the ones that we've already talked about. It could be feeling guilty about not performing the usual tasks for the holidays. There's hesitation to ask for help. Um, Saying no, again, is very difficult. Coping with, their own lack of sleep or fatigue, or even feeling pressure to hide any of the emotions that they're experiencing. So I really can't express this enough. I think it's important for anyone to get support. Caregivers too need support. And as caregiver, you're going to feel overwhelmed too. And you're going to be tired and have your own worries. That's absolutely normal. I would say, to once again practice your own self-care and build your own support network. Prepare, organize, and educate yourself the best you can. And communicate and respect your loved one. So what I mean by that is find the best ways to communicate the expectations and how to adjust expectations for this year, and really respect any decisions that your loved one is expressing to you. So if someone's expressing they're not feeling up to doing certain events, that's okay. It's going to be very hard for everyone to make that adjustment. And you can go ahead. Thank you. You can go ahead and go to that next slide.
Sorry.
That's okay. So I mentioned that, Stephanie mentioned that I work at Cancer Care. And I briefly wanted to just mention some of the services that we can provide, because I talked about getting support so often. So where are you going to find some support services? Cancer Care does offer free individual counseling with an oncology social worker and live groups, live support groups over Zoom in New York or New Jersey. Nationally, we have online support groups, educational workshops, publications, other educational series. We also have resource navigation that offers practical guidance or information and resources to overcome barriers to care. And you can view all of our services online at cancercare.org, or by calling our national toll-free number at the number here. It's 1-800-813-4673. And the number will actually allow you to speak with an oncology social worker as your first point of contact. So when you call, you'll automatically be connected to a social worker. And those social workers can match you with all of these services that I talked to you about, and even provide support. And I'm sharing this information because I think it could serve as a great complement to the wonderful services already provided by the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition. I know you guys offer a lot of great support, whether it's peer support or counseling and education, resources, specific to ovarian cancer, and collaborations really bring on more opportunities for support and information. All right, so the next slide. So my last slide here brings me to some reflections about this presentation today. So I would love for you to really take some time for yourself, whether now or later this evening, really whenever you have a moment, to really reflect on what you may have learned. Are there any tips that you maybe have already used that you think are helpful, that you'd like to share? What has worked for you in the past? Or what do you think you would like to try that is new that we talked about today? So really in this brief moment, just reflect on those questions. And if anyone feels comfortable, please feel free to either put in the chat or share when we open up for questions. I think that's a great way to just have a conversation about what we've talked about. All right, and next slide. Thank you. Well, yes, I just wanted to say thank you really to all of you here again for sharing your evening with us, and for talking a little bit about you were very very vocal in the chat, so thank you for that. And of course, a big thank you to Stephanie and the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, for putting this all together, and for allowing me to be with you all and share this important topic. So definitely a round of applause for you. And just thank you for having me. So that's my presentation. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Stephanie, and we can open it up.
Thank you very much, Marissa. I am going to say thank you very much for sharing that information with us and being a part of this presentation. And I just want to say this to everyone, that what I would like to say is that, Marissa, you have shared such valuable things that will hopefully provide coping skills for people to get through this holiday season, and also sharing the wonderful resources of cancer care has to provide for the patients that we serve. And I just want you to know, if you feel that these resources will help you on your journey, that's the most important thing, is that we all work collectively here to help support you and your needs. And I really can't thank you enough for being here tonight. And I am very excited now, ladies, to start with the Q&A period. So with that said, if you guys would like to take a minute to put the, some questions into the chat, we would love for you to do so. And again, what you feel comfortable with, and also what we can do at this point is I also can ask you if you want to openly ask the questions. So what I am going to do is, I think the only way that this is going to work is, okay. We are now back on gallery view. Does anybody want to openly share a question, or if you prefer to put it in the chat, please feel free to do so.
I do see one question in the chat already, which is great.
Okay, wonderful.
This question says, I find it difficult to offer happy holidays to someone going through cancer. What is appropriate to say? That is a really great question. And I feel like that's probably not uncommon, because happy holidays sounds so joyful, and it may feel inappropriate. So, I'd say, if you know this person closely, you would know best how they're feeling. And, maybe an alternative could just be wishing them well. And, you can wish anybody well at any time, and that's always appropriate. I wish you, a relaxing holiday. I wish you well this holiday season. That could really go a long way. And instead of just saying happy holidays, instead of using that word happy, just letting people know also that you're available for them. I wish you well, and please reach out. And it can be short. And I think that's a great question. Yeah, that is really an insightful one. Let's see what else.
I got a question actually texted to me, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I don't mind.
So the question here is, this individual has adult children that want to pretend that mom does not have cancer. And how, if mom is not feeling well, how is mom realistically supposed to get through this holiday season? And this is somebody that is 2 years into their diagnosis.
So adult children, so I imagine we're talking about 20, 30, 40-year-olds, 50.
20s, in their 20s.
In the 20s. Okay. So, I think that's a tough one, because it's really hard when your loved ones, your children, can't acknowledge what's going on. And I wonder if it's a good time for, for a conversation on expectations. And having good communication is always going to be, really important. It's challenging sometimes, but it is going to be really important to do. Because there may be a balance of, I don't want to disappoint my children, but realistically, this is something that I can, and these are things that I cannot do. So I think it's a good opportunity to share a little bit more and have an open discussion.
Thank you. Marissa, do you have tips on how to start that conversation?
Yeah. So, one of the things that, someone can say is, let's say, for example, your children may come up to you and, you know, be very excited to celebrate a certain holiday. And they're asking maybe a lot of you. What you could say is, I definitely appreciate the fact that you want to celebrate this holiday and in the ways that we used to. I think it's important for us to have an honest conversation about some of the changes that we may have to make this year. And I'd be happy to see you in person or chat over the phone, whichever way makes you more comfortable. But I think we do, need to just sit down and talk a little bit about the expectation. That might be a good way to start the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much for that very thoughtful answer. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Whoever asked that, thank you.
Okay, ladies, does anybody have something that they want to either put in the chat or feel comfortable enough to raise their hand and ask the question? Quiet, okay. Okay.
I do see a couple of more. So I'm 6 to 7 years into my diagnosis and people are tired of hearing about it. I'm still on treatment and functioning very well. So yeah, I feel like that's a great statement as well, a very insightful comment to make. And I feel like it is actually, no matter if you're 1 year, 6 or 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is, people are really not going to be able to relate if they haven't been in those shoes before. And I think that can be I talked about isolation and frustration. It can be very hard because a lot of the times, people may think, that you look like you're functioning very well, you should be fine. You shouldn't feel the way that you're feeling. It can be very dismissive. And I think it's a great reminder to people, if you feel comfortable to share how it actually does feel, to hear them say those things, or maybe how it actually does feel, to still be on treatment after all this time. How it feels physically, how it feels emotionally, if anyone's open to or comfortable with that conversation. Because I really don't think a lot of people understand, if you're especially that many years out.
Okay, another question that you got, Marissa, was what if I have young children? What do I say to them?
So I wonder, for young children, I wonder, what do you say to them? I'm wondering what they're asking. So, for example, they may be asking, they don't understand why are things different, or, they don't understand, they're very joyous. Why is my parent not as happy this year? It's the holiday season. We're supposed to be happy. So if those are the types of questions that are being asked by your child, that's actually not uncommon at all. And I would say, let them express their disappointment. They're allowed to share and feel their feelings as well. And that creates a very safe space. And, I'd also say, give them information, age appropriate. I don't know how these children are, but, give them age appropriate information that can help them understand a little bit more. And, also reassure your children that you care for them and you love them. And, the changes are not their fault. Sometimes very young children thinks, things are very much about them or something they did. And also ask them for ideas on how to make the holiday different or special for them. They might find that, being able to participate is, a really great way to be connected to you. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Marissa, there's another question for you is how do you gracefully say, I don't want to talk about it?
Yeah, that's going to probably, you have to set boundaries. And a lot of times, if you don't set boundaries early on or at all, a lot of the times people won't know what the boundaries are. Maybe they have poor boundaries themselves. And, a good way to say that is, I appreciate you asking. Thank you for caring. And right now, I just don't feel comfortable talking about that. I hope that's okay. And see what their reaction is. Most people should respect that, I think. However, if you find that, the same person didn't necessarily hear that and maybe, still very curious, sometimes you just need to remind them of what you said and always, when you set a boundary, always stick with it. Don't let somebody, because they're asking multiple times, don't let them kind of get away with them, that they themselves having poor boundaries.
Wonderful. Okay, I have another question that was actually texted to me. This is, I am actually a single individual, and I normally spend holidays with friends and their families. And because of COVID, I'm still not comfortable doing that. And I'm receiving a lot of pressure. What is the appropriate response?
Yeah, I mean, I said a little bit before, people may feel like COVID's over and they may not understand if, someone's in treatment, how scary it can be to be immunocompromised. And not only that, how scary it could be to probably have a worse reaction if you do have COVID. So I think, the advice might be very similar to what I said before, is thanking somebody for the invitation. And at this time, I really just don't feel comfortable in being in a room with a lot of people. Not necessarily, it doesn't mean that I don't care about you, or it doesn't mean that I don't want to see you. But unfortunately, right now, I'm not in a space where I can be in a group of a lot of people, no matter who the people are. And sometimes people might feel offended. So I think it's important to reiterate that it's not about them. It's really about how we feel and how comfortable we are with something or not comfortable with something. And maybe an alternative is, the following week is maybe we'll do something on a smaller scale. I'll see you and just you. Or, I know I talked before about Zoom fatigue, but maybe you can Zoom in for 5 to 10 minutes just to say hello to everybody. Will that bring, some uncomfortable questions? It could, where people may ask you, why didn't you come, or why aren't you here? So you might want to consider how comfortable you are at that point, just if that's a possibility. But I think that could be ways to deal with that and to cope with those pressures.
That was a beautiful answer. So thank you for that. That was very good. This individual will really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, ladies, we are nearing the end. So I am going to actually do first, before I do close, I want to make sure that I thank Marissa for her time. And I want to say we are really grateful. And I'm going to give you guys the opportunity just for another couple of minutes to ask a couple more questions. But I just want to say, this program, again, is designed to provide you with insight, techniques that will help you get through the hustle and bustle of this season, and validating your own feelings as well, right? Your feelings are real, and owning them. And I think that that's really important. And we just really want to thank you, Marissa, for your time and for collaborating with us. And we look forward to future collaborations with Cancer Care. And I want to also thank this educational program is brought to us because of the generosity of our community partners of Merck and Northwell Health. And they allow us to bring these types of programs to you to help you throughout your survivorship and your journey. So I want to thank everybody for that and for coming. And with